I'm ready.
Shall I introduce you?
Yeah, you can go ahead. Very.
Yeah, yeah,
It's very cool.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah. I just want to say thank you for being here. Like every week. You want me to change it to a full screen or something?
Yeah.
It's always been on.
How many guys? We'll, be cognizant of the time, so we'll try to keep this going. But we want to provide an update. I think it's important for us to give the town council regular updates. This is our second one. We'll have our fourth public workshop on next Tuesday. And having these updates with the common council, I think is important. All of that updates provides us an opportunity to give you an overview of key potential changes that we're considering. So tonight we're just going to spend a little bit of time talk quickly about the status of the project, what we've been, an update on the accessory dwelling units regulations, some dimensional adjustments related to density and height for some of the districts. Then we'll talk about a few zoning amendments. There's a bunch of them, but we'll probably just hit the highlights. We'll go through those on Tuesday, and we'll have actual boards up that highlights the zoning district changes. And then we'll talk about next steps and then have a discussion. But I'll also pause after we get to each of the main points to see if you guys have questions or things you want to talk about. And that top thing, that probably won't be very, very sometimes I would go vague. Anyway, so just this was to provide an overview again of the team that's supporting us. I'm Matthew Rogers, which is Sandra on the senior planner, working directly with Alicia and Alicia City, and a very diverse committee made up of city employees, planning and zoning board members, planners from the town, as well as Sue from the economic development or VP of economic development for the Northern Future of Commerce, as well as Branson Duke, who's a senior at Plattsburgh High School, what's going on with the college next year. So he's been very helpful to put a good wide perspective from the entire city. So it's been a great committee that has been working with. So we began March of last year. We've had 13 full pack meetings, 25, 26 working sessions, which range from 2 hours to all day. So that demonstrates the amount of work that everybody's putting into this where we're at. Again, we'll have our fourth workshop next week, multiple stakeholder meetings, and produce a significant amount of draft and revised draft material that we presented to the public. A lot of information that we've been working on behind the scenes to get to where we are today. Just to reiterate that the we're being driven by a couple things that currently recently adopted comprehensive plan, the housing advisory committee report, and the LWRP that the county council recently adopted as well. Those kind of are three main driving points that we're using. And every community, once you adopt a comprehensive plan, you need to bring your land regulations and conformance with them. So accessory dwellings, it's a big topic nationally and locally, way to try to increase access to housing. And we wanted to kind of highlight where the trends have been going. So ADU has been around since there's been homes, really. It's just a funky little term for a smaller apartment that's moved within or attached to principal structure. And say over the last 10 or so years, there's been trends of relaxing regulations, reduce the barriers, ease the permitting process, eliminate certain lot size requirements, parking requirements, et cetera. Our approach, which you'll see, is kind of a mix of where a lot of communities are going these days. Allow for ADUs to be above garages. That introduces some complexities in terms of accessory structure, heights, and setbacks. But everybody's realizing that ADUs is just another important tool that communities can use to increase access to housing, allow more residents to live closer to job opportunities, as well as childcare. They're very important aspects to take into consideration, and two things that are becoming more challenging: childcare and quality affordable housing. It also provides an opportunity for seniors to be in place, increase income by having additional apartment properties. And as communities start to introduce more flexible ADUs, they've also been providing public awareness campaigns to assist the homeowners to get through the permitting process. And as of late, more sustainable, energy efficient, sustainable energy efficient ADUs have been coming online as your manufactured home businesses recognize that there's a clear need for these and a market. So they're being produced in a much higher quality these days than they were in the past. The American Planning Association recently released what's called the Housing Accelerator Playbook, and that is a document that provides actionable items to community leaders and planners to increase access to housing. It's a great report. I suggest you guys just peruse it real quickly. Provides really great kind of guidance, and also just gets you thinking about the different opportunities, challenges that are out there by housing. So that playbook is a big advocate for simplifying the process, really focusing on mitigating actual impacts and not potential perceived impacts from ADUs. The North Country Regional Economic Development Council recognized the importance of housing and encourages the use of PFDs or ADUs in their 2023 strategic plan. So the point of providing these slides is to demonstrate that this is not something that we kind of pull out of thin air. We're recognizing that there's a lot of resources out there, a lot of support for increasing access to housing, and these documents, if you're interested, you can take a look at them and just get a different perspective on how communities are being encouraged to increase access to housing, particularly through PUD. So New York State Housing Community Renewal has an incentive grant program, and the Lake Champlain Lake George Regional Planning Board also promotes ADUs. While obviously the city is outside of the region, they're right on the doorstep of the Adirondacks and Lake Champlain Lake George region, and their tools and process too can be considered and utilized throughout it. So wanted to highlight that there's a lot going on out there, a lot of resources and organizations that support this approach. So based upon all the work we've done, we're recommending that ADUs be allowed to be up to 800 square feet, so to be 800 square feet is no larger than the principal structure, but whatever is smaller. So if your principal structure is 900 square feet, you're good. If it's 800 square feet, you can't be larger than that. So a lot of communities use a percentage of the principal structure, 50%, for example, but we felt that's arbitrary. It's an extra layer of complication to the process. We looked at 800 square feet, and that's large enough for a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment, plenty of room. There were 1 or 2 people, even as a small family, and basing it out of the principal structure was inappropriate. But obviously, we have to keep it so it's accessory subordinate to the principal structure. So 800 square feet is pretty good starting point. So district specific recommendations. So in the residential historic district, ADUs will be allowed for single family and 2 families. Lots that are less than 7,500 square feet with an existing single family would be eligible. The 7,500 square feet is the minimum lot size. In RH currently, will be remain that based on our current regulations. But we recognize that it's important to provide an opportunity for somebody to seek an ADU. Doesn't mean that it would be approved because there's other aspects that are factored into approvability, setbacks, parking, for example. But lots less than 7,500 square feet, two-family dwelling on it would not be allowed. Draw the line somewhere, 2 units on a lot of that size would be our district maximum. But given all of the other opportunities we're providing, we don't feel this is kind of limits the development of those inappropriate. So the R1 district, which is the orange color, obviously the one at the bottom that's certainly no housing is there, but we have R1 on Cumberland Ave, it's kind of cut off, so right there, and then both north and south of Cornelia Street. So that's a primary single family existing low density zoning district. So ADUs will be allowed on lots only single family, so it's already two family. And there are numerous lots in the R1, family, multi-family. So already have a two family, we would not be allowed to get an ADU. If it's you're less than 7,500 square feet, would not be eligible. Single family dwellings with an ADU already, or if you get one, with an ADU, you would not be able to get another one. So only one ADU per lot would be allowed, and then that's going to be across the board. And so essentially, it comes down to homeowner in the R1 district. It's a choice, create a full second unit with no size limitations, other than what's going to be driven by the size of the property, or you can get an thought that was fair and appropriate process, and then in the effort to maintain the current character of those neighborhoods, but allow some gentle density increases. Then the rest of the zoning districts where we're proposing to allow them, neighborhood commercial is a very small area, that's the RH district, that includes Zooks, Chuck Wagon, that Four Corners area. Then you have R2, which is the yellow on the zoning map, which is about 2/3 or so of the city. Then RC1 and RC2. RC1 is North Margaret, the area just north of the Point Historic District. So the train station, the marina area, and then RC2 is basically pretty much everything just of US Avenue, the openings. So ADUs would be allowed again, single family, two family, less than a minimum lot size, you would be eligible to apply, you still have to meet that's requirements. And minimum lot size for two-family dwellings are required to be eligible. So again, these are, it may seem initially there's a lot of layers here, but once it's in code, pretty straightforward. And we've gone through this a lot. We've got consensus now, a way to increase the opportunities for ADUs, but understanding that there needs to be some realistic limitations there. So the ADUs that would be allowed are attached, so they would be, you want to do a structure attached to the house built on it, or a conversion of the part of the house into a separate unit, internal, whether that's basement, upstairs, above the garage that's attached. Sky's the limit. Actually, it still needs to meet building code requirements. Detached, it can be standalone. One in the back, and that's obviously on scale. That's a technique I showed you the difference. Attached, detached, and then a converted. So the garage that's converted into an accessory structure or a carriage house, for example. And in the R1 district, knowing that again, it's your kind of low density residential area, and there's a desire to maintain that to a certain extent. We've been discussing ways to have a little bit of a check on detached units. Detached ADU can change the character of the lot significantly. It's not done correctly. So looking at limiting ADUs in the R1 district to lots that are 1/4 of an acre per acre. So we took a look at all the lots, single family lots in the R1 district. There's 1,401. lots that are equal to or greater than quarter acre, about 493. So that demonstrates that about a third or so of the lots would be eligible to apply. We felt a quarter acre was a good starting point for discussion, because that medicated provides additional room setbacks, buffers from the neighboring properties. Some additional requirements. So principal structures setbacks would apply to attached, internal, and above the garage, or above other accessory structures, interjumps, for example. And in the RH Maryland district, for example, those height restrictions to 35 feet. So the reason why we wanted to highlight this is you can see the garage, the apartment above. The garage is an accessory structure. In the city, 16 feet is the maximum height for accessory structures. Putting an ADU above a garage, it cannot become a 16-foot limitation. It essentially will become a 2.5 story, 35-foot structure to meet building code. So we want to be able to provide that opportunity. So the proposal is that it's a ADU on the garage, 35-foot limitation, maximum would apply, and then all of the other associated setbacks. So it's in the RH district, we propose a sliding scale of 10 to 25 feet for principal structures. Anywhere than that is allowed, and 10. At least a minimum of 10 on one side, a combination of 25 feet. Same for R1, although at R1 it's a minimum 25 feet. So all of those have to apply. That is certainly appropriate. What we're considering, and then the design requirements, just something again to maintain the character of the residential neighborhoods. The stairs should not be located along the front facade. So, for example, the one on the left there, it's going out the side there from this perspective, and then the one on the right, we have the stairs that go in front of the facade of the structures, whether that's accessory structure, attached garage, or the house itself. For generally do not see stairs in the front facade of a home. So a lot of times when homes are divided up into multiple units, that's one way to get access to the front, and that is another design element that we would be incorporating overall as multi-family homes to ensure that that character of the units aren't diminished. So that's an aesthetic thing, but we feel it's an important part of this overall process. And then detached ADUs, dimensional location requirements. So if it is just a detached ADU, something in the backyard, 16-foot height limit required, shall not be located in the front yard. It's just like every other accessory structure, not in front of the principal structure of the house. And the shall comply with the principal structure front and side setbacks. So we talked about this a lot, went back and forth. So the shed right now in the village, they are allowed 5-foot setbacks side and pretty much right up to the property. We felt as an ADU, a living structure, allowing it up to 5 feet from the property line just would not be appropriate based on our discussion. So we thought we would require it to maintain setback from principal structure, so we would be compliant with the house. Except the rear setback. Most of the setbacks, about 25 to 30 feet, or the rear setbacks in the residential districts, they're offered for the most part. That would be a pretty significant limiting factor. So we felt 10-foot would be appropriate, and on top of that, require a fence and vegetative screening around the sides of the structure to provide additional privacy. For not only the ADU tenants, but just as importantly the property owners. And another design requirement would be the entrances should face into the property. It should not be right up against the property line. That may not be possible in all situations, but that's going to be a strong encouragement to get those entrances facing the property. Couple more, so parking go. One off-street parking space would be required for the ADU in addition to the other parking requirements. Principal building And then the architecture to the maximum extent that you can, it should match the principal structure. So that we want to have any significantly contrasting materials and colors. That's pretty standard. And then a couple permanent occupancy items that we've been discussing. So we'll go through administrative review, not go to the planning board, but this administrative review process would allow for this to be to the planning board if there was one or more issues that we felt needed a full planning board review. So it doesn't negate a full review, full site plan. Considering requiring annual renewals for 8 years, there hasn't been consensus on that yet, but we're batting that idea around. The unit cannot be sold and conveyed separately from primary residence. That is given. We've also agreed that that should not be rented less than 30 days, so it cannot be listed on a short-term rental website. That's an important distinction there. Also, not proposing that either structure be owner occupied. Current ADU accessory apartment regulations are pretty strict. One of the requirements that one of the units has to be owner occupied. And the national trend is moving away from that. So about 50-50 in every community. If you kind of take a look at New York and Northeast, it's about 50-50. But we felt that it's a limiting factor. It's also an administration and enforcement issue that we've had a lot of time and paperwork to cities to maintain that. But we felt that the ADU should be listed on the rental registry. Right now, it's 3 and above. Units with 3 and above have to be on the rental registry. We felt that ADU should be added to that. And then if the principal structure is going to be rented as well, that needs to be on the rental registry. And then we're also recommending that the rental registry require a local property manager to be listed for units as a way to just an additional protective measure to ensure that the city knows where the owner is and they can be contacted and deal with an emergency or a enforcement issue. And just as important, we know that somebody's going to be around to maintain that property as opposed to somebody that owns the property and lives across the country. So that's something that would make an additional recommendation to the rental registry law, which is technically separate from zoning law, but an important part of this overall discussion. Well, if you have to get a permit to operate your ADU, that automatically would be part of the section being much to get that approval and then add to the rental registry. And then if we do end up having an annual renewal for the ADUs, which would be pretty straightforward. It's not going to be another new.
I mean, the property manager, how?
Well, then that would be, again, part of the annual renewal would be that they have to confirm that this person is still going to see how that property. They're not going to go knock on doors, etc. There are many communities that would require that as part of our registries. It's likely to change, and if it does change, the city has to be notified. Just like with everything now, there will be the cracks that there's a learning curve that figure out it's one way that somebody's avoiding this requirement, and we'll make some adjustments. But the goal is to ensure that we know who's living there, how many people are there, how many units, who contacted us. So I think this is a good time to pause on the ADUs. If there's any questions, any discussion that the board might have. So we can come back to this at the end. Continue. But if you have any questions, just raise your hand.
I'm curious too, just thoughts and overall feelings of, some designs and some
I think it makes sense so far. I'm following along what you said all the way through and appreciate the breakdown a month ago. You sent us a breakdown of description, which was very helpful as well. I'm struggling, and I think I'm quite articulated, that's why I'm pondering of the no need for owner occupied, I am concerned with that, but I'm having a hard time articulating what my concern is with that. Ultimately, it comes back to the conversation with the neighbor of that person that owns that property doesn't necessarily need to live in the city of Plattsburgh, and doesn't even care about that property conversation. That's one red flag, but I'm thinking about that.
That's probably where the property manager comes into play. Maybe that will alleviate that issue of no owner occupied, having a property manager, you know. Yeah, that- I mean, granted, when you look at these kind of things, like the one on the corner, the person in the car wash. Right, this is, you know, we try and have the weird, I'm assuming, and so. That, is where that comes into play, I agree, it could be, you know, because it's not unoccupied, we can't.
Yeah, we'll just expand on that. A lot of the properties in the city own remotely. And there's a big difference on how well they're kept up. And, speaking to Jacob's question, you know, that's one of the reasons that we started this rental registry in the first place. Who do you call? You know, some guys in New Hampshire, the guys in South Carolina, you know, if people are making too much noise or there's a big issue there. Have big parties every weekend. Who do you go to? That's a big gap. They don't have, also I want to mention, not a big fan, but living in a denser area. I'm not big on horizontal expansion and development. There's enough buildings and small buildings, 2 homes on a lot, things like that. As you expand horizontally, you make a lot of congestion. My money, you want to be expanding more vertically. It's a lot cheaper for the city to do one hookup. If you've got 8 units, 10 units in a building, it's higher. You've got one hookup for water, one hookup for sewer, sweet. You know, I picked up a lot of things from the Smart Towns group. And that's one of the things that they kind of encourage, not, you know, we don't have that intermediate housing where there's still bigger buildings. You know, we have a lot of converted large single family homes, and they can tend to spread out. These places have big garages, carriage houses, whatever, external buildings. They're already dense enough. They got 14 units, they got 10 units, and then you start spreading this out. That makes a really ugly development for your city. Lots of little tiny buildings stuck all over the place. Where I live, there's plenty of place. There's a guy in my backyard, there's a guy in the side yard, there's big buildings on it all around them. And to put more little buildings in there, it might be great for the landlords, but it isn't really great for the people.
Yeah, and the house goes to show. Talk about this. Neighborhoods that. Not every lot is going to be able to. Not every lot. Probably only get. You're there, so on. Because it's not cheap to build separate standard. To separate. Where it's return one. Right, it's already there, whether it's going up a garage or the basement, from the outside, you can really tell the difference. And provides, you know, cost savings for property. So there's a lot of factors that play into whether or not standalone ones are fit out. So it's more likely to see the town.
Yeah, I don't think we have big rush people. I joke with my husband, because we have this humongous 2-car garage, gigantic, we barely need that. And I kind of let's turn that into a double, a house or two houses, we can put our kids in. But no, do you know what it would cost to turn that into, things like, so it's not like there's gonna be a massive rush. of people doing it. I don't think.
Well, here's another thing too, because tendency has been, especially in my area, lots of deep. Okay, so everybody pushed their garages and outbuildings to the back of the property, which is very close to the other people's properties. And there's a fair amount of these types of structures. Now, you know, you're saying, well, we'll have 10 feet. So there's a lot of buildings that aren't 10 feet from the property line. And they're already there, garage or something, you know, what's to stop somebody from, what are they gonna be able to, develop these properties? Because I've noticed in most of, a lot of neighborhoods, everybody puts their junk, their garages, their garbage can, whatever, right up, but other structures are right up against the back boundaries. Now, we're gonna be looking at grandfathering these people in so they can fill these in with apartments, or are we gonna say, hey, wait a minute, that's, you know, that's 5 feet from the property line, and we can't put an apartment.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Separated building, because there are a lot of them out there like that.
The ones we have discussed were projects. Top. And it's a lot higher. Heights, and then knowing that those might be 5 feet off or right at the property line, it should forest entrances. Properties. We haven't gotten drilled down to if we need to address, say, you have a garage that's in the back, it's right about the property line. It's there, we need to prohibit them from being converted or provide some other mitigating factors. So we haven't drilled down to that yet, but it's good. And it just goes to show that there's so many variables out there. It would be, it's long, it could be, very possible thing, but that's something that we will kind of take a look at, and also kind of do a general inventory. See that how many of these situations would be occurred. I'd say going forward, if somebody says, say, I want to build a garage, and it's going to be 5 feet off the back inside property line, prohibition, their patient says, hey, so you know, we can have any if you want, you need some think you might really need. So that's something for us to consider. But good discussion.
Can you walk me through the 30-day component? The show that you're less than 30 days was
Right, so that's the definition of a short term rental. So somebody can, if word of mouth, be like, hey, you know, it's let's say it's not on the short term rental, which is a way for city to recognize that, enforce that, and that's goes the same way as the short term rental. It's not listed, then technically we're not violating, or at least should be hard pressed to track it down. So the idea here is that the ADUs are a density bonus. Or you can have another dwelling unit of 800 square feet or less. Don't have to have the acreage for 2 units. But with that comes certain restrictions. One being, if we want to provide other opportunities for increased access to housing, for housing, but not with the sole purpose of generating income for the property. Short-term rental does not solve the long-term rental. So that was that's the thinking about it's listed on a short-term rental site, the RPO, Airbnb, you know, the city is tracking that for the short-term rental regulations, and that would come up if they would be in violation. How that's addressed, that's down the road, but that's the direction. Moving here. Now we're going to drill down into some dimensional adjustments, densities, heights. First, we're gonna talk about R2, and I'm gonna try to be. Sorry, before I have five. So R2, again, that's the about 2/3 of the city, that's the yellowish zoning district. A lot of numbers here, so bear with me. In the R2, the density is established by the land use type. So single families, you have minimum 5,000, the minimum 5,000 square foot lot. And that is also the area of the dwelling. So if you have a 10,000 square foot lot, theoretically, you can subdivide that into two single family lots. Two family, 6,000 minimum area, 3,000 area as well. So it's a 6,000 square foot lot, you can get a duplex in there. Then it goes down from there. The lot size goes up slightly, whereas the area of dwelling goes down. The idea of we'll give you will allow more density at a lower area for dwelling ratio. And then in the R2, it's set up as low rise, which is 35 feet, is lower, and high rise is above that. And current regulations refer you to what's called Schedule 3, which has a bunch of calculations to kind of figure out what the density should be for low rise and high rise. And the average lot size for all of these different types is around the right hand column. Just kind of give you a perspective of where things are in real life compared to zoning regulations. So to get a baseline, we went through and calculated what the density would be for a 30,000 square foot lot using the formula that the city provides. And that equals out to about 19 units per acre. And then if you do the same calculation using 43,560 square feet, which is 1 acre, it's about 19 units per acre. So that formula essentially gives you 19 units per acre, regardless of the size of the plot. It'll vary a little bit, but the idea here is that because of that, we're likely to lean towards just coming up with a straight up unit per area calculation expensive of the formula. We'll explain why. And then based on an analysis of all residential types in the R2 district, per city's density in the R2 is about 10 units per acre, or a little over 4,000 square feet per dwelling. Right, it's pretty wonky, but there's a reason why we had to go through this to kind of get a better baseline of this. Then we further broke down all the existing single, 2, 3, multifamily to kind of get an idea. All right, what's the density for all of those existing uses? But try to get us an understanding of what's really going on. And then we broke that down even further. So all existing low rises, so 2.5 stories or lower, the density in the city is 14, whereas a high rise, which is about 3 structures in the city, is 35 units per acre, which you would expect. You're building up. David, as you mentioned, more efficient, higher density. That's what we should be doing where it's appropriate in city neighborhoods. So we wanted to provide a couple of real life examples here. So Terrace West Way, located on Gilead, north and south. We identified those north and south. Those are 2 different tax map parcels. On the north, what you're looking at there is 14 units per acre, and the south is 16 dwelling units per acre. Kind of give you some context. Been driven down through there. So those are 2-story buildings. 8 units each, and shows. And then Tiffany Way, a little bit higher density, that's about 18 dwelling units per acre. So some context there. Then we wanted to look at like how many lots in the city are over 100,000 square feet, which is about 2.3 acres. Which right now you have to have over 100,000 square feet to go above 2.5 stories without going through a PUD process, which is a zoning amendment process. So you have a handful of these. So the 2 parcels right adjacent to the pavement towers north of Boynton Avenue. Those are really the two large vacant parcels of the city. Those two right there. Then Cumberland Ave, so there's 3 parcels here. This one is part of the old tank farm and it's not developable because of the environmental conditions there. So again, along Cumberland Avenue. The ones to the north of that was utilized as part of the dewatering remediation. Likely to have some environmental considerations that I think is on track to be used again for some remediation. Then one that we believe is owned by a subsidiary for Pacific, wetlands, floodplain, not necessarily out in the tax rolls for development, so that's not available. Then we have 2 parcels, again, Healy Avenue, so you'll see the Healy Avenue west that we just talked about. It's also, so the one on the left, the long one, just south of a parcel that is recently that we did approve, right?
Yeah.
Yes, for a conversion, retrofitting, adaptive reuse, so the technical term, for housing. So these 2 are over 2.2 acres and theoretically could be an area for a high-rise development through the zoning process. So we just wanted to kind of show you that those are the vacant parcels that are in R2, very limited. We also recognize that maybe those 2 parcels probably aren't the best places for high-rise, and that we are beginning the process of considering, maybe in the R2 area, R2 zoning district, we can allow up to 4 stories, with 4-story being allowed as a density bonus if that structure is to have a certain percentage of affordable housing. So it's not an as of right, but you get that second story or story and a half if you would provide a certain percentage of housing. So it's an incentive-based approach. So after we went through this, we came down and recognized that we'll probably maintain the density for single family right on up to townhouse. The minimum lot sizes will all be the same, but for the multifamily low rise, so 2.5 stories, we would say, let's go to just under 19 dwelling units per acre, and that's based upon the current formula that we ran. So if you do a calculation, you're gonna get about that amount. Trying to kind of stick with round numbers, we're figuring 2,300 square feet per dwelling unit made sense for a low rise multifamily. And then the high rise at 34.8 or almost 35 dwelling units per acre, that's based on an analysis of the existing high rise structures. Going at 18 or just under 19 didn't make sense for a high rise. Again, that's the area we want to maximize your density, encourage that intensity of use. But also we recognize that maybe the high rise portion of high rise development should be allocated to the north of the properties, which is next to the Northway. Here we have the Beacon Towers. You don't have residential rate against it, like we would those 2 parcels really have. So that's been our approach to the R2 district. And I know it's a lot of numbers there. Sometimes it's hard to conceptualize what it means, but we did our best to run the numbers and help inform these decisions. So I'll stop there again, see if there's any questions. We'll talk about this again on Tuesday with the public and plenty of time to have this discussion. Happy to.
So you guys have all this wonderful information, and I admit I've missed a lot of meetings when I worked on the day. But you guys have all this wonderful data and all this wonderful information and all this hopeful. So can I assume you guys are people who want to build on this property?
That's not part of the ideal, I would imagine this.
I mean, that would be
We did,
fantastic.
we did meet with some developers and a variety of stakeholders, and we listened to them. And what we hear is that development needs to cancel out developers in the latest business and do their big plan.
Yeah,
And that big limiting factor right now is these essentially arbitrary figures that you receive the perfect example would be the central business district numbers as well. using the formula that the code provides for that, nobody can build any residential development downtown, that's gonna.
Absolutely,
It's-
absolutely,
it's,
absolutely.
To pay the bills. So the same goes with R2, and also it's to alleviate complexity in the code right now, just go to a straight up area per dwelling units, get rid of the formula, square roots, and all that stuff that's in there, and I give a lot of credit to Kyle that I'll work through that, because that formula actually has square root as well, it just years, and it's just another roadblock.
It is, it's frustrating, I go down, I see my daughter in North Carolina, and every time I go down, there's a new high rise. A new apartment building, she's, every time I talk to her, oh my God, they're building one here too, and it's just, oh, wow, it's like, I don't personally want to back up here, but it's. How do we do that, where, I mean, that's down south, I get it, in the city, it's Charlotte, but how do we? Yeah,
We don't want to get away with the story, but we want to get rid of unnecessary arbitrary restrictions.
And if I may, this is the first step to creating the format, so more development can happen in a sensible fashion, and once we get this in place and if this zoning update is successful and is adopted, then we'll take it to the next steps, and then the city, if it chooses, could begin marketing certain lots and reaching out to responsible developers. And take it the next step further, but it needs, and we can use this information to highlight what the available opportunities are within the city.
we didn't part
Yeah.
So we go through this real quick. So central business district is downtown district. Minimum lot sizes again are divided over high rise and dwelling unit calculations being versions of schedule 3. So all parcels in average size downtown is a little over 11,000 square feet. The mixed use residential, so the buildings that have residential upstairs, just under 4,000 square feet. And then the average existing density is just under 47 units per acre. For 936 square feet, which is reasonable, appropriate, what you expect density in downtown, where you max out a lot. There's no setbacks, you have 100% lot coverage, you have public parking areas, so you don't have to provide on-street parking. That's what we're going for. But if you use the city's zoning law, all you're going to get is 7.6. That is completely inefficient. Nothing's ever going to happen. And what that does is it forces developers to go the PUD route, which is very cumbersome, inefficient, very costly way. If all it is they're looking to do is get more density, whereas we take a harder look at this and say, hey, 7.6 units per acre, it's not going to work. Let's adjust it. So we did take a look at a couple of examples. So the vacant lot, again, we're not advocating. It's a great little open space. We're not saying they should be developed, but it's one. So I want to put that out there. We're not advocating developing the community space, right? So, but it's the one vacant lot. Everybody knows where it is. It's small. It's an infill lot, 624 square feet. If you were to use the density calculation in the zoning code, you get 3 units. That's not going to work. It's very insufficient. Another existing one is a laundromat on Clinton Street that has 3 stories of residential with commercial on the first floor. It's essentially a mixed use structure. That density is 113 units per acre. That's a great example to say that we get a lot in there. There's no parking offsite. It's on street or in public lots. It really maximizes it. There's no setbacks. That's what we're looking for as a good example. 213 as a set limit might be a little high as a starting point. So we're just what we're looking at. So we recommend a base density of 45 units per acre. That's consistent with the average right now. It's certainly lower than what that structure has, but it still allows developers to feel like they can more density, we can go the PUD route. But we're also going to encourage, or begin discussing the ability to have incentives. So if you are going to provide a certain percentage of affordable housing, we give you another 10% or 20% more units on top of that. We provide those. So affordable units. We're also recommending a 2-story minimum. So again, typically they build more than 1 story to have things pencil out, but that doesn't mean that would happen right now. There's not a 2-story minimum, so we're recommending that. So any structure would have at least have to have 2 stories. Now allow 4 stories. So right now it's a 3-story maximum. Right, I think it varied a little bit for the downtown. There is a high rise and low rise as well. But if you go around, it varies between 3 and 4 stories right now. So we figured having as of right 4-story for central business district makes sense. And so yes, it's 3 stories for low rise. Then it takes you to the another calculation, which is based on the lot size, and you've done the calculations and it works out well for Beacon Towers. It's a large lot, but a say 4,000 square foot lot, you're only going to get a couple of stories based upon that calculation. So that doesn't work as a good approach. So we're going to say 4 stories is as of right. 5th story will be stepped back. So so the 5th story would be right at the building line. We step back and we have patio space up top, and that's a way that gives you additional space, but it limits the kind of the imposing of a tall street wall. So pretty much just have the tallest, I think, is 4 stories in the city right now. So adding a 5th story, you don't want to significantly change the character of the area. So pushing it back, so it's set back 10, 15, 20 feet from the street edge, gives them more space, but it also maintains that kind of 4-story look. Helps mitigate potential impacts. And then the same issue with the density bonus. So that would be both. Maybe get a height bonus or a density bonus to provide some affordable housing. Next step we're going to look at for R2 are setbacks. We haven't gotten into that yet. But for the city, it's going to be 100% lot coverage, no setbacks for the downtown area. And then obviously the nice big things is the parking requirements outside of the downtown, which has the parking. So I'll pause there, and there's one more kind of topic I want to hit, and I ordered past 5:30. So questions. Obviously, that's where we want to allow for encourage higher density development. Go up, go 5-story appropriate. They will start now. Parking requirements. So obviously, it's always going to be in the process. There might be situations that is on the road that the city needs to have identify additional parking, public parking areas, etc. But right now, this is the first step to ensure that the code aligns with the comprehensive plan that we want to encourage higher density. Right now, there's a couple of options. So we want to get with this. Last thing we want to talk about is the Reeves Lane area, which was annexed town to the city in 2021. Right now, it's a no man's land. Doesn't technically have a zoning district. It's a combination of existing buildings, underutilized property, and some environmental development constraints. So if you're not familiar with it,
I didn't even know where it was. I had to look at it.
oh yeah. So that is Ruger Street. So it would be connected. There is connected to the city. On the south there along the river, and that's the SUNY's property. And then in the middle there, that's still town property. Or not town property, but it is town. So the old Norco facility is on there, the old composting. There's a reclaimed mine, so it's a bunch of kind of true industrial uses south of the Reeves Lane that runs east-west in the middle of the property there. Next slide. So the old concrete batch plant, the city still utilizes the mid portion. Tree removal composting area, and then of course you have that compost facility right on the southwest corner. And then there's parcels in the town to the east, that's an active dump site. We have a regular salvage yard, so the adjacent uses aren't necessarily fantastic for particular types of development. This was the town zoning, so along Ruger, it was a kind of a mixed commercial, mixed-use commercial zone. That's the pink, salmon color, the yellow was a residential district, and then the industrial district along the side, and then the current industrial district that's to the east. That's still zoned industrial. So it kind of gives you a context of the previous zoning the town had. And then there's a handful of wetlands and some drainage areas and streams, with some limitations in terms of the actual environmental constraints. And then, given the past issues, we would expect to be some potential concerns for contamination, et cetera. We haven't looked into that. That's not part of this process. Obviously, anything that happens out there, they will have to go through the due diligence and the process. So we spent a lot of time, sat down with Trevor Cole, senior planner, director of planning for the town of Plattsburgh, and our full committee to kind of discuss different aspects of potential use of the property. So based on our conversations, we know that there's that parcel that someone didn't buy our screen there that might have future multifamily residential directly adjacent to this parcel. And there is concerns that there could be impacts on adjacent uses to the town and the city if there was like a true heavy industrial type uses that went there. Because major neighborhoods are downwind from the site. Obviously, corridor implications, if we had high impact, high intensity type industrial uses in that line, the Northway and Uber. And then obviously you have traffic impacts that leaks that are allowed in there. It's just a lot of cut throughs to the neighborhoods. And a lot of that can be addressed in the review process. So we don't consider those limiting factors, but it's something important for us to take into consideration as we're looking to rezone this property. So the current approach that we're considering is to look at a potential combination of flexible light industrial and B2. So B2 is the current zoning for Skyway Plaza and Plattsburgh Plaza that we're tinkering with and allow for mixed residential and a little higher structures than what are allowed right now. So on the north side, and then some light industrial on the south. So along Ruger, kind of backing around certain ideas, a great place for the recreational sports complex, public to private, small scale retail, mixed commercial, residential, professional services, workshops, studios, where we would want to try to protect the residential character and corridor on the north, and then allow for some flexible type light industrial uses on the middle part, and then recognizing the importance of the Saranac River provides the type of river drop off there to limit intensity development. And then for aesthetics and other joint property considerations, have some buffers along Northway and Ruger Street that deal with architecture, setbacks, as well as protecting the potential future residential use in town. And our next steps is that I think after yesterday, we got pretty close to consensus with the committee. We're pretty much there. We just need to flesh out the allowable uses and decide if we're going to create a separate zoning district, separate zoning districts or district for this area. or lump them into existing zone. So we wanted to flesh out, past discussions that we've had, the past uses, what's driving our decisions, and present this to the council. Because this is important to the extent that we take notes from no zoning, kind of a blank slate to specifically zoning. Want to make sure that spoken with every party involved and get you that. So I'll pause there. I think that's regular for this night. So we'll go through this with the public, along with some other zoning changes that will actually be on boards, like the Oak Street area, and Broad Street, and other stuff we'll talk about on Tuesday. So open for questions, and we're always available for one-on-one conversations. Council members, if you have any questions, right now. I already know. My calls and calls are usually pretty good. Any other questions? You know, the big point here is we just want to kind of get an idea of, are we heading down the right path? Something that's really good to pause, just start burning. Because there's a lot of information coming at you, and then our next step is to pull all of this information and a bunch of other administrative aspects and changes, and present that to you over the next couple of months. It will be a lot coming, but we have to kind of break these down to a little more digestible. So, at some point, obviously, people will be asked to vote on a document, so we don't want to wait until the end to start to get an idea of kind of where you feel we're going on and maybe what you're in situations. So thank you for taking the time to
We gotta do something. If we don't, we do something.
last time.
That's just statements.
It's not fancy, but it's important to prove the process. Make basically set at the envelope of what you want to see, but make it more transparent. Without being based.
Yeah, there is a lot of historic. That, I mean, that makes me pause. I coach the college, that even some of the things downtown, I don't know if those are historic or not, but like the one that we showed up above that.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff.
Great,
I
absolutely.
remember saying,
So one of our big next steps is to work on time guidelines and standards. So, as well as the residential storage protection. as well. Find those. But the idea here is anything new going in needs to look fairly consistent with what we have now.
yeah,
Not blank walls, gotta add some detail. Size and which lines. That's an important part of this, so that's the next focus for us. So, next up. So, right.
Can I ask really quick, I'm just curious if there is any feedback that you've been hearing from constituents, like trends around the reception to this project so far.
Piece I've noticed is those that are engaged, which isn't the majority, is why are we changing it? Why are we doing this?
Yeah.
If I had to talk about a conversation, with neighbors, it's been, this is why we're updating it because it's so archaic. We need to move it in the right direction. I think there's a, my feeling more to is a baseline of what is zoning, why is it important, less why are we updating it?
Yeah, the why.
The why piece.
Why.
The actual nitty gritty piece, the stuff that we're talking about here, I don't think a single person's, well,
no, they don't care.
they don't care.
They don't care.
The law doesn't affect things.
No.
Yeah.
That's right.
Is there any like themes around fears, like certain fears that people have? Adopting.
Well, I can tell you mine. I have a very large, I think it's a quarter acre, but I'm not entirely sure. On me, no, but I brought it up last night.
We could look up your.
Don't take my house. I've been in the house that's with my parents' house for 80 years. Don't make me try to reconfigure my property. Don't. you know, just because there is Alstom or whatever that is behind me, that's not my problem, I can tell it's up there. I've lived there all my life, just like that. I hate the trailer park, always hated the path, but it's been there all my life. The Vernon Hills at the end of the street has been there all her life. Don't uprooting people, though, that's the kind of things that people are going to be upset about.
Yeah.
If you try to take that away from them.
That's actually for, yeah. That's still expand.
Yep.
All of those homes are not, technically, not allowed to. Recognize that, because we want to provide more housing. So if it's income, ideas is to make it the flexibility and make it nice homes, rest of them. But the underlying industrial zone is not going to go.
Yeah,
Still,
yeah,
but we recognize that. Can't stop.
we do need,
Improvements to your home.
we do need apartments, we do need houses, we do need. I mean, my 40-year-old son had to live with me for a year and a half because he couldn't find an apartment. And that's not good, it's not cool, so. I understand that we need them, but like I said, who's gonna build it? And so if we can take, if people are willing to make ADUs that aren't an eyesore or that aren't infringing on people's backyards like Jeff. And then, you know, then that's what's gotta be done. Now, like in Jeff on Oak Street, that is a big, that is over everybody's like on top of each other. But there are other areas of the city where there's not, so.
Thank you for sharing.
All right, again, Rose available. Grab some now.
Thank
Thank you very much.
Joe, I wanna ask you a question.
Sure.
Melissa Barr. Oops, I'm sorry. You're welcome.